There are moments in every market cycle when everything seems too quiet, almost like the calm before a storm. And right now, XRP is sitting in that exact moment. For months, investors have been watching it bounce between familiar levels, assuming nothing major is coming. But what if that silence isn't weakness, but pressure building before the biggest move we've seen since 2017? Because according to a well-known analyst in the crypto space, XRP isn't just preparing for a small rally, it may be gearing up to blow past $4, a level it hasn't touched in nearly 8 years. As we break this down, we're going to uncover the chart that sparked this prediction, the dates that actually matter, the whale movements nobody is talking about, and the catalysts that could push XRP far beyond what most people think is possible. And look, if you're one of the people who believes XRP has been underrated, overlooked, or straight up suppressed for too long, then go ahead and hit that like button now, because what we're about to uncover might change how you see this entire cycle. This isn't a hype video, it's a deep dive into wave structures, institutional flows, liquidity expansions, and long-term adoption patterns that many analysts ignored until now. The prediction didn't come out of thin air. It came from a detailed structural analysis that reveals something extremely unusual about XRP's current positioning. And by the end of this video, we're going to understand why this analyst didn't just say XRP could hit $4, but that it should. So let's jump straight into the details, because once you see the reasoning behind this call, the quiet behavior in the XRP market suddenly looks a whole lot different. And trust me, this is just the beginning. The analyst who made the call. The prediction that XRP could surge past $4 this cycle didn't come from your typical influencer or someone casually charting on social media. It came from X-Force Global, an analyst with a reputation for dissecting market structures with precision. This is the same analyst who successfully predicted Bitcoin's 2020 rally, the retracement levels in 2022, and the macro pivot that occurred in early 2024. When someone with that record posts a chart that goes viral, the crypto community pays attention, and they did. In late November 2025, X-Force Global shared an updated chart showing XRP was nowhere near completing its final bullish wave. Instead, the market had been misinterpreting an extended correction as the end of the cycle, when in reality, it was only a setup for a larger move. According to this analysis, XRP's price action since 2023 has been forming a flat correction route, a pattern that historically appears right before a massive impulse. That alone was enough to turn heads. What's more interesting is how the analyst pinpointed the exact regions that matter: $1.30, $1.80, and $1.87, calling them the foundation levels for the next leg up. These aren't random numbers, they're structural supports lining up with Fibonacci zones and previous high-volume nodes. When all three align, it usually means the market isn't weakening, it's coiling. And that's why this prediction hit the community so hard. It wasn't hope, it was math. But we're only getting warmed up, because the next part of the analyst's breakdown explains why this setup doesn't just support a move to $4. It suggests XRP has been preparing for it for over 2 years. And once you understand that, the entire chart changes meaning. Technical analysts have been arguing about XRP's structure for years. But this time, there's something different. When X-Force Global revisited the Elliott wave pattern in late 2025, they found something that most analysts missed. The final bullish wave for XRP never completed in the previous cycle. Instead, the price got stuck in an extended sideways correction, something XRP is notorious for. This flat correction route has been forming since August 2023, and when you look at historical cycles, XRP formed almost the exact same structure before its massive explosions in 2017 and 2021. The more the charts were reviewed, the clearer it became that XRP wasn't failing to break out, it was building a base. And the moment analysts removed irregular candles and market inefficiencies from the chart, a clean upward pattern emerged, pointing directly toward a target above $4. The $1.87 zone in particular has acted like a magnet, repeatedly catching price since early 2024. In technical analysis, this kind of repeated reclaim often signals a springboard. Then we look at the dates, and the timing becomes eerie. XRP reversed near the same cycle point in November 2025 that it did before its 2017 breakout. The structure leading into Q1 2026 mirrors older patterns almost perfectly. Long-term Fibonacci extensions set targets in the $4.20 to $5 range. Even the RSI behavior on the monthly chart shows the same coiling pattern we saw before previous explosive moves. This wasn't a sloppy forecast. It was a calculated model showing that XRP might be sitting on the edge of a long-awaited upward wave. But technicals are only part of the story. The real push often comes from something much bigger, and that's exactly what we need to talk about next. The real catalyst: institutions plus ETF momentum. Charts can tell us a lot, but they can't replace one thing: real money. And right now, that money isn't coming from retail traders. It's coming from institutions. Between November 18th, 25th, 2025, multiple XRP ETFs launched, finally giving traditional investors a regulated gateway into the asset. And once those ETFs went live, the inflows started almost immediately. We're talking hundreds of millions moving into XRP exposure within weeks. These inflows aren't random. Institutions typically stay far away from assets without long-term utility. XRP, however, has something most cryptocurrencies don't: an entire ecosystem built for real-world financial movement. In Q4 2025, Ripple expanded several cross-border payment partnerships, including integrations with regional banks and international settlement providers. The more money moves through RippleNet, the more XRP benefits, and institutions know it. On top of that, rumors started circulating in late 2025 that Ripple may roll out another major liquidity solution before Q2 2026, one that could significantly increase the network's on-chain volume. And historically, XRP's biggest rallies have always followed network usage spikes. We saw it in 2017, again in 2018, and in smaller bursts throughout 2020-2022. If you want to follow these developments as they unfold, make sure you're subscribed, because these institutional moves are happening fast, and missing even one update could leave you behind. But the most interesting part isn't the ETFs. It's what whales have been doing long before the public even noticed.
Whales are quietly positioning for a breakout. Whale behavior is like watching shadows move on the walls of the market. You don't always see their intentions clearly, but you feel the effects long before the public realizes what's happening. For XRP, those shadows started shifting in September 2025, when massive wallet clusters began accumulating heavily below $2. By October and November 2025, multiple whale wallets, some holding tens of millions in XRP, were moving tokens off exchanges and into private custody. That is almost always a bullish sign, because whales remove their assets only when they plan to hold them, not dump them. Even more telling, exchange reserves for XRP dropped to multi-year lows around the same time institutions began loading up. That combination rarely happens by accident. And here's the part that caught analysts off guard. Whale accumulation during a sideways market is the same pattern we saw right before XRP's massive rallies in 2017 and 2020. They weren't buying during hype, they were buying during boredom. And right now, they're doing it again. But while $4 seems impressive, whales may be positioning for something much bigger. And some analysts agree, which leads us into predictions that go way beyond what the mainstream expects. Other predictions: $6, $8, even $20? The $4 call is actually one of the more conservative predictions floating around. Another analyst famously said that if XRP manages to break $3.10, it's game over and a blast toward $9 becomes extremely likely. That $3.10 level isn't random. It was the point where XRP previously got rejected in early 2018, and it has acted as psychological resistance ever since. Break it once, and the entire structure opens up. Then we have analysts sticking to a long-discussed $20 target, even arguing that XRP's current distribution phase doesn't change the long-term bullish setup. Their reasoning is based on macro cycles and the assumption that once global liquidity increases and tokenization expands, XRP's transactional role will grow exponentially. If that happens, double-digit XRP doesn't sound impossible, it sounds expected. But before we get lost in high-number predictions, we need to talk about something every investor must understand: the risks, because no bullish story is complete without facing the reality of what could go wrong. The risks and what could slow XRP down. Every asset, no matter how promising, carries risks, and XRP is no exception. Before any breakout, there was always volatility, and during ETF phases, that volatility increases even more. Some analysts warn that XRP could face sharp retracements before stabilizing, especially if institutional buying slows or whales take profit too early. Regulatory pressure is another factor. Although Ripple made significant progress legally, any new regulatory delays or unfavorable interpretations could slow momentum. Even a temporary pause can delay breakouts for months. That alone can shake out impatient investors who aren't prepared for XRP's historically slow build-up phases. There's also technical risk. Breaking below the $1.30 support would be dangerous, potentially sending XRP into a deeper correction near 90 cents. And historically, profit-taking waves tend to hit XRP around the $2.60 to $3 range, which could slow or stall progress toward $4. But once we acknowledge the risks and remove the noise, a clearer long-term picture begins to form, one that many analysts believe could reshape XRP's future as we move toward 2030. Long-term outlook, 2026 to 2028. If there's one thing XRP has that many cryptocurrencies don't, it's a long-term plan rooted in real adoption. Between 2026 and 2028, analysts expect massive advances in global payment infrastructure. Ripple has already positioned itself with banks, financial institutions, and monetary networks in multiple regions. As more institutions adopt on-chain solutions, XRP could become a preferred asset for liquidity, settlement, and tokenized money movement. Then there's the XRP ledger itself. With its recent upgrades in 2024 and 2025, including tokenization tools, AMM functionality, and improved throughput, developers and institutions have been experimenting with new use cases, increasing volume and driving more activity. When usage grows, demand follows. Forecasts for 2030 range from conservative to extremely optimistic. Conservative models put XRP between $3 and $10. Moderate models point to $12 to $25. And the aggressive forecasts backed by institutional adoption theories place XRP in the double-digit to high double-digit range if global liquidity systems pivot toward blockchain-based rails. But predictions mean nothing without action, which brings us to what this all means for us watching this unfold right now.
What this means for us as investors: look at the entire picture. An analyst calling for $4 plus, institutions loading up, whales accumulating, technical patterns lining up, and long-term adoption growing. This isn't a random moment, it's a convergence. And that's why investors need to think strategically. Nobody needs to rush or gamble in a market like this. Smart investors use DCA strategies, track whale movement, monitor institutional flows, and remain patient during slow phases. XRP has always been the type of asset that moves suddenly, the kind that does nothing for months, then takes off in days. Understanding that rhythm is key. So what does the $4 prediction actually mean for us? It's not a promise, it's a signal. A sign that XRP may be closer to a major breakout than anyone realizes. And when we step back and view the structure through the lens of long-term cycles, the idea that XRP is undervalued doesn't just sound possible, it sounds likely. If you're still watching this video right now, drop a comment with the price you believe XRP will hit before the cycle ends. And make sure you're subscribed, because the next few months may be the most important period XRP has seen in years. XRP has spent years building, consolidating, absorbing pressure, and setting up for a move that many analysts believe is long overdue. The call for a rally above $4 isn't just hype. It's supported by technical structure, institutional inflows, whale positioning, and long-term adoption trends. Whether XRP hits $4, $6, $8, or something much bigger, the next phase of this asset's journey is shaping up to be one of the most explosive moments in its history. And the question now becomes, is XRP finally ready to become what it was designed to be? If you want more deep dives like this, subscribe, leave a comment with your prediction, and hit that like button so we keep pushing these videos out to more people who need to see what's really happening in this market.